My name is Sara. I'm a compulsive overeater. I weigh and measure from the gray sheet and call my sponsor and don't eat in between meals no matter what. And abstinence is a foundation of my life today. I'm going to read my story, most of it, because I was afraid I'd be too nervous and just go blank if I didn't have it in front of me. And so I'm going to also tell you a little history about myself and not just do a food litany. Okay, I was force-fed white carbohydrates that comes in loaves by my stepfather when I was around 6 years old. He didn't want me to order food in the restaurant where we were being taken by his first wife's parents, who were paying for it and were very wealthy. I cried and begged him to stop feeding me, and he hated me, and I knew it. I didn't order anything. I was crying at the restaurant, and someone asked me if I was okay, and I wanted to order. But I shook my head no and continued to cry silently. I started stealing food from the house that I lived in with my mother, stepfather, and step-siblings. I was a targeted victim of abuse in that house. I stole food to have some kind of comfort and love. I was abused by being ignored and neglected by everyone, including my mother, who never intervened to protect me. Food gave me the illusion of love. My stepbrother hung me over the side of a bridge by my hair. I thought I was going to die. He also pushed my head underwater and no one rescued me, and I thought I was going to die again. I would sit at the table by myself because I could not finish my dinner. I sat for hours. When I started to develop, boys noticed me. I was terrified when they touched me, and I started eating to protect myself. I ate because after school, when my mother wasn't home, it was just she and me alone together after they divorced when I was 13. I used to steal food from a grocery store when I was 14, and I got caught. The guard said he wouldn't report me, but if I did it again, he would. My mother put me on speed to lose weight. I didn't stay on it long. I was a cheerleader in the 9th grade, and I think I would have been popular if I hadn't gotten fat. I used food to comfort myself, to protect myself, and as a source of love. I started seeing a psychiatrist when I was 16. He told me that my mother called him and said she would institutionalize me if I couldn't control my anger towards her. When I got to college in 1969, I let myself go, and I got up to 176. I went to Israel to live on a kibbutz at 22 and still weighed the same. I lost a little weight and fell in love with an Israeli paratrooper. He told me to go home when his unit relocated. I tried to see him, but he no longer was interested. I followed my best friend to Cambridge, Massachusetts. I was overeating all that time. I moved back to Austin to study voice in 1973 because my mother and second stepfather would not pay for the New England Conservatory of Music. I lost weight but would always gain it back. I lived that way with food, dieting, and eating until 1986 when I found the gray sheet. I hated it at first, although I got abstinent the same day. I was a very angry person and hated everything about weighing and measuring. I went through at least 6 sponsors but stayed abstinent. I finally found that special person who was my sponsor for almost 30 years. The longest I had back-to-back abstinent was 6 years. I started day 1 5 times but never left the gray sheet and never ate non-gray sheet food. It was difficult to start over even though I hadn't eaten illegal food. I went to Italy by myself on the gray sheet and remained abstinent, and I returned to Italy with my husband when I was off OA How. At some point, I stopped weighing and measuring in restaurants. I tried OA How, but that didn't last because my sponsor said I never stopped talking about the gray sheet. So I eventually gave up and decided to eat whatever I wanted. I was out of the gray sheet for 6 years. I'm 5'2", and eventually got up to 212 pounds. I became frightened because I could not stop eating. I got on Zepbound and lost 34 pounds in 3 months, but it stopped working. I called my former GreySheet sponsor, Carol, who's here tonight, and she asked me if I knew that Kay had died. I told her no, I didn't know, but if anything like that happened to her, I needed to know, and somebody should call me. And I suggested Sue, who was also at this meeting. So Carol called Sue, and Sue called me, and Sue told me, she didn't tell me this at the time, but she did ultimately tell me that the only reason she called me back because it was regarding Kay. I knew Kay. She was my sponsor, and I would ask my sponsor so many questions about the GreySheet that she finally just told me to call Kay and ask her the questions directly. And she would answer me. So that was good. She was very nice to me. And when I talked to Sue, she sounded so wonderful, and she just sounded wonderful. And I said, I want that. And she said, well, why don't you come back? And I said, okay. So I've been back 105 days. I've received many gifts from the program. I've reconnected with my GreySheet friends. I have no guilt when I eat my abstinent food. I don't have obsessive food thoughts anymore. I'm no longer a slave to food, which is what Kay used to say. If I do have a thought about my favorite binge foods, I don't have to act on those thoughts. There is a space between my thoughts and my actions, which is a miracle for me. I have a fellowship and meetings that are powerful and help me stay abstinent, and I'm making new friends, and I have wonderful sponsors, and these are the miracles of the program for me. So that's it.